It's the state of the dungeon. It's a video that Rob does about his games. Yeah! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I am Rob, and this is my State of the Dungeon address. This is the address for the game that took place on March 24th, 2022. The game, 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons in the Dragon Heist adventure path. All players were in attendance and were raring to go because I had decreed that training was shortened. They were all on their last day of training. It really didn't need to go that long. It's nice to have it. Nice to narrate that. I think the players are enjoying a little bit more logical than, oh great, ding, bam, have some new stuff. Now, a little bit of training can make you respect that and work for it a little bit. I think it's pretty good. Plus, it gives me new ways of scarring one of my players, but we'll get into that. So, for the most part, the players had gone through their different challenges and everything. Obviously, they'd been running around and following on leads and trying to track the Zentarum. And, of course, everybody has 5-letter names. I have to keep track of everybody. Okay, Luxor. It was nighttime, so he was doing his training with his beloved mentor. Truly beloved. The most deranged character I think I've ever played in a game, but it was fun. So much fun. But, well, that all resolved itself as we will go on to. For this last leg of his training, his mentor handed him a mask, put on a mask himself, and they were going to go be vigilantes for the night. Shooting human targets who were criminals. Wasn't going to get any better. But the rest of the group came back home after their excursions with horses, and of course Zarya was there with Maximilius, who gift of gab, he's got it. Chatter. Entertain her. They all got back home. They're all like, you know what? We have training in the morning. We're tired. We've been running around. We've eaten well. We just want to go to bed, be ready for the next day, do what we need to do, get our training done, be second level. Life gets good. So, they go to bed. Except, well, Aldrich goes to bed because he knows he has to get up relatively early. Even though he trances, he still has to get up, rest, read his spell book and everything, and then get to his mentor so he can get his training done. Jazor, as a paladin, he knows that it's his last day of training before he becomes a second level paladin. It's going to be a big deal, so he needs his rest. Felix, pretty confident in his own durability, he decides he's got to go and get some pruning tools and start taking care of the vegetation around the place. Part of it could be the fact that he had a little bit of a chat with the druidess who has the herbal shop. Part of it could just be he wants, he knows it's something that needs to get done and he doesn't want to have to pay somebody to do it because they don't have a lot of money. And a big debt hanging over their heads on how to fix this place up to be a working, thriving tavern. So, he's out there whacking away at weeds with his scythe that he bought. He bought a bunch of pruning tools and stuff, and he's doing his thing, which is great. Because he overheard the sounds of fighting. He heard a metal-on-metal clang, and, being good adventurers, I let all the party have a perception check, including Luxor. They all made it. Everybody rolled great. Obviously, nothing possibly could go wrong if everybody's rolling this good out right away. Yeah, about that. Anyhow, so everybody wakes up, and everybody's like, oh, if there's a fight or something going on, they all ran out. Nobody stopped to put on armor. Everybody just grabbed a weapon, maybe. Aldrich grabbed his wand and his spell components, and Zarya grabbed nothing. She just ran out in her If you play a massively multiplayer online role-playing game and you take all of the gear off your character, you'll usually see them standing around in just their underwear. If they're a female character, they will have a concealing wrap and, like, granny undies or something. Yeah, that's Zarya right now. Runs out. No weapons either. She's got lefty and she's got righty, so she's okay. Barbarians, right? Yeah. So she charges out. Jazor stops to grab his beloved greatsword, and he runs out. Aldrich has, like I said, had his things, and of course, to frame this all, Luxor had heard about this fight. He heard something was going on, so he ran to the location because he knew it was close to Troll Skull Alley, where their manor is. And his mentor is not a tabaxi and could not keep up. He was like, go ahead, I gotta take a leak. So he lifted up his dress and just started going in the street. But Luxor was bound and determined to be on site. And of course, Felix has a scythe in his hands. He immediately goes to investigate. It's at the far end of the alley, down over by the carpenter shop, the bent nail. And when he gets down there, he sees that there's one person who's being ringed by 5, looks like common cut purses, really. The one person alone, though, is a fairly tall figure in a big cloak who just looks massive. But he's still outnumbered 5 to 1. That's usually a bad thing. And they apparently had thrown something at him or something, which made that metal on metal sound. And they were fanned out to cut off his escape routes, and he was just kind of standing there, and all he had in his hand was a short stick. So Felix skulked in, saw the situation, didn't stealth very well. So they heard somebody was back there. But he decided that, okay, this is kind of serious. Him being back there got 2 of them to look. But then 3 of those cut purses jumped the lone figure. One of them stabbed him with his short sword. Pretty good shot, too. So he's like, ugh. Felix decided, enough is enough. I attack. Try to imagine this, if you will. You're a cut purse. You've got your 4 best friends around you who are also cut purses, and there's this one lone figure who looks like he's got an entire, like a peddler's shop on him. He's all by himself, and he's clanking like all get out, so he's got saleable goods. It's a great night. You're going to get money. And then, out of the deepest nightmares, this huge tiger man, swinging a scythe, looking like Kid Reaper, comes charging at you. Terrifying. Melding out of the shadows. The problem was Kid Reaper had a gardening scythe, not a war scythe, so it's an improvised weapon. So he whiffs. Kind of spoils the effect just a little bit. Also, this Tiger Man he looks really cool, and he's got fur and stripes and everything, looks great, but he's not that buff. He skipped a lot of arm and leg days. He's super nimble, though. If he had his bow, trouble. But wielding an improvised scythe, not so great. So these 2 square off with him. The other 3 continue to go after this guy, and then the guy snaps the stranger in the hood, snaps his that stick forward, and a lash of lightning comes out, and he attacks to defend himself against these others. But he's wounded, and now it's still 3 against 1, but he's got some help. Then Luxor, from down the far end of the alley, because the alley kind of did an L-turn, heading back out into the main street, and Luxor's at that intersection, he fires his arcane blast, or Eldritch Blast. Hits one. Ow. That hurts. The rest of the group is now running up the alley themselves, again, in various states of ready for a fight. Zarya steamrolling, spoiling for a fight, just wanting somebody to hit. Jazor moving up, trying to protect everybody and trying to dispense some justice. Aldrich's running up and he's like, oh, there's a fight going on. fires his firebolt straight up into the air as an impromptu flare. That's sure to get the guards. Clever thinking. Well done, Aldrich. But at this point, Felix gets stabbed, and the big figure standing against the three, when he sees that he's got help, he takes a step back and he does something. He reaches under his clothes, he waves his hand, and two of the attackers drop. Not dead, they're still breathing, and most people can can understand what a sleep spell is by this time. It's a common spell that apprentices run around with and use to defend themselves. So, yeah, if you've been in a world with magic, you're going to recognize one of the most basic spells that almost all apprentices learn. So the guy who was there kicks one of his friends to try to wake him up. Rolled a 1. Stomped on his face instead and broke his nose. Woke him up, though. Got what he wanted done, so yay. But that's when all of a sudden, well, Felix lashed out with his claws, injuring one. Not as satisfying because, again, it's strength-based and he's not very strong. Then Jazor comes along and just cleans this guy out. Just wipes him out completely. I believe Aldrich even fired a firebolt out to try to help out, but didn't do a lot of damage. And at the same time, Luxor is, getting ready to fire his Eldritch Blast. Well, this is when Aldrich says, you hear that? Because now he could hear whistles blowing. The guard had noticed the firebolt going up into the air. That's actually kind of a universal symbol in Waterdeep for trouble. Just send something up into the air. So there were some whistles, and he goes, you guys can keep fighting if you want. The guard is coming. You can hear their whistles. So if you stay here, you're just going to get arrested at the best. At the worst, he's going to eat you. Something along those lines. And that was enough. He made his intimidation roll, rolled a 20. He did well. And the cut purses didn't want anything to do with this. There was only one guy who still wanted to fight, and he was taking on Felix. But the one guy sleeping wasn't moving, and the other two go, yeah, run away. Sounded like a good idea. One of the ones on Felix also, run away. Seemed like a good idea. Well, all of a sudden now, Luxor is looking, his mentor is running behind him and is relieving himself in the street, and he sees two cutthroats coming his way. They're charging as if the devil themselves are at their heels. So he casts Cause Fear on one of them, who suddenly fails a saving throw, turns around and runs straight back. Because that's how it works. He had to run away. So he starts pounding his way back. At this point, they have subdued one of the cutthroats. And this guy comes back. Now, the way the one guy got subdued was he got literally just picked up and slammed. And that took him out. And this, of course, is Zarya, who's been working on her grappling techniques with the guard, executing a perfect German suplex that just puts this guy out. But now another guy comes running into the ring. And Felix is just kind of, yeah, this is annoying. I don't have my weapons. I don't have to shoot somebody. Well, he tries pursuing one of the runners. And he rolls to hit, and he hits. He rolls to tackle, rolls a 1. They lock legs and collapse to the ground. They begin fighting on the ground. Felix ends up taking a knee to the old litter box. He didn't like that very much. But the one guy who was running back, who's caused fear, Jazor and Zarya decide they're going to have a little fun. They realize that they aren't just locked down to, I roll to attack, I roll damage. Nope, they were trying to figure out how they were going to take care of this miscreant and make sure he didn't get away. So Luxor moves up, Jazor moves up, grabs him, and uses a hammer throw, just pushing him at Zarya. He makes his hit. He rolls very well for strength. This guy is not incredibly strong. He goes running without anything he can do about it straight at Zarya. Zarya meets him, grabs him in a bear hug, and then with his momentum slings him around and suplexes him right onto the ground. Boom! Out. There's nothing, no questions about it. He's down. But they hear there's still more scuffling going on down the street, around the alley where the others ran off. So, Jazor goes running off because he's a paladin. That's what he does. Now at this point, Loxor had one of them got too close. So, close range, Eldritch Blasts, for the most part, trying to get that working. Felix is all tangled up with this guy. And looks like they've got him. Looks like everything is good. His master puts down his shirt, standing here in a pool of his own. Yeah, right in the middle of the street. That's not legal. And he's like, "Oh, it's a great job. This is so liberating having this dress on. I know if we find someone with a kilt, remind me to murder him so I can get his kilt." The guard didn't appreciate that, who was closing in on the whole thing, and clamped an arm down on Loxor's instructor, his tutor, who he's been spending the last few fun days with. Well, his tutor goes... immediately Loxor goes, "I don't know this guy. I don't want anything to do with this. I'm going to back away." And he immediately started looting the bodies of one of the fallen. And the guard's like, "What are you doing?" "I took this guy down. I'm taking his stuff." "You can't take his stuff. That could be evidence. You don't have the right to roll bodies of people who have been downed. If he's still alive, that's stealing. If you have killed him, that makes you probably guilty of something worse." Okay, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to walk over closer towards you." That's when the mentor screams, "Save me, apprentice! I'm too beautiful to go to prison! They'll probably do to me worse than what I've done to them!" Pew! He tries shooting the guard. Word to the wise, don't do that when there's a paladin of someone standing there. And Felix didn't look like he was all too happy about that either. So now there's a fight. The guard is ready to restrain this guy, and now he's firing bolts of energy at him. And he actually injured this guard. Oh, it was on like Donkey Kong. Loxor immediately moves up. Felix immediately moves up. Actually, no, Loxor didn't. Loxor tried to hide behind Jazor. So Loxor the Warlock tried to hide behind the Paladin. This might be something that happens again and again, honestly. And the beatdown just commenced. Zarya comes along. She's holding two unconscious bodies like unruly kittens. Oh, more fighting! Dunk! Yay! Get in for more fisticuffs. But by this time, the mentor, he got beaten down. And I don't even think at this point Luxor even remembers his name. But all the while he's getting beaten down, he's enjoying it a little more than anybody was comfortable with. Let's just say he's one of the most loathsome characters these guys have ever faced. And I don't know if Logan was prepared to have a person this insane mentoring him, but there you go. And he eventually got beaten unconscious and bound up and arrested. And they called for more guards, and eventually a whole crew of guards showed up. And after the group gave their testimony, they took all these miscreants away. The group really didn't even have a chance to do a lot. They couldn't roll the bodies because, again, the guards were there, and they don't appreciate that, as has been dictated. They didn't even really have a lot of opportunity to check for tattoos to see what gang affiliation they might have had, or they probably weren't the Zentarum. They really weren't. That whole deal didn't seem like that would work. But through the fight, one other thing became apparent. The cloaked figure was helping them. He had that lightning whip thing, and when he saw that that Felix had been hurt, he'd been stabbed pretty hard, and then he got kneed for his trouble. If he hadn't been training to get up to level 2, he probably would have been down. And he came up and he took out this fabric with all these whirring and clinking noises coming out of it. And he's like, I'll take care of you. And he put it on his midriff where he'd been stabbed, and all of a sudden the pain was gone. And I was like, wow, that's great. And they could see that this figure was a dragonborn. He's not quite as dragon-ish looking with all the rills and the spines like Jazor. He's a lot more aerodynamic. His face is a bit blunter. He's got very, very fine scales that if you're looking at him in good light, you can see it, but in the shadows, he might be able to hide as something else. But no, he's clearly Dragonborn. He is Copper Dragonborn. He introduces himself as Khalees, and he is a tinker. He is a guild craftsman from the Metalsmiths Guild, and he is an artificer. And he thanks the group for helping him, because clearly he was in a bad spot. I don't know if they noticed, but he used his one healing ability on Felix to kind of in gratitude. And the group's like, hey, you seem pretty cool. And he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about trying to find a spot here, but because the people in this town are pretty superstitious against a lot of Dragonborn, except in this area, because there's the bookstore is owned by a gold Dragonborn. Jazor is a silver Dragonborn. So, around these parts, the Dragonborn are a little bit more accepted. But a lot of the people are kind of superstitious about the Dragonborn because the Tyranny of Dragons storyline had already played off in this area. And there was a lot of half-dragons and kobolds and stuff that was in with the Cult of the Dragon. Some people are a little superstitious. So he thought it was actually safer to travel at night. That might say a few things about how wise he is. Or isn't, as the case may be. But he thanked them, and he told them his whole purpose, what he was doing. He got permission to open up a shop on his own so he can make some money, make his trade, perfect his craft. And he was hoping there'd be some place in this area, since there are some other trade places, especially since there's a really good metalsmithing shop. He hoped they could help work with him, give him some finished products that he can use in his stuff, and metal that he could buy from them as well. So I thought this would be a great place, somewhere along Troll Skull Alley or Copper Lane or someplace like that. And the group's like, yeah, actually there is a place over there, but you're going to have to wait till morning, before anybody. He's like, okay, fine. And that's when Zarya went with her patented adoption technique. No, you're coming with us. We can put him up someplace, can't we? And they're like, we already have a kid. We already have a halfling. We're not adopting every stray that you find. There were puppy dog eyes. And they're like, oh, okay. Maybe we can find him a place. And they're like, well, we've got the basement. We want to put ale in the basement. He's like, if you just give me a small little crook that I can work and be unmolested, and set up and make things and do things in the time being, I'd be very grateful. I'd even pay rent. And that will help you against your costs. And they're like, well, we really need money. We are really strapped for money right now. How much? She's like, well, I'll give you 25. 25 gold? Yeah, that'll help. Sure. Okay. So now he is setting up in what was their wine cellar. He is cleaning it and fixing it up to meet his needs. Along the way, he shows them some of his tricks. As an artificer, I'm very excited about the class, so I kind of wanted to show them what artificers are like, and they seem like so much fun. I really would love to play one. But at this point, Khalees is there to support the group. He's there to help them out. So in this case, he says, okay, yeah, this'll do. Just leave me to myself. I will make sure that when I leave here, after the 10-day that I'm paying in advance is up, I will make sure that I restore the racking here so that you can use it for your wine again. And by this time, I'll probably have my own place, so it won't be a burden to you guys. You'll be fine. They're like, cool. Because goodness knows we have enough things on our plate to deal with. They already have all these different errands running around, reporting back to Mert with the information they have, possibly stopping the murder on the docks, and going up to the mountain on Mount Waterdeep to go and talk to this hermit, who might have information for them. Maybe, maybe not. They don't know. So yeah, there's lots of stuff. And hopefully some of it makes them some money, because they are poor as heck yet. Compared to, you know, having to come up with 1,000 gold to pay off the repairs and everything that they need to do. So, they chit-chatted over a bit, but they're all tired. They were already in bed, wanting to sleep, with the exception of Luxor. Hey, Luxor got done early because his mentor got taken off to jail. And I think he was so happy with that, too. Well, I don't know. Maybe some mixed feelings. I think he did enjoy being the center of attention for that. But at any rate, he's second level. Finished, done, kaput. Now he's exhausted. He goes to bed. The rest of them rest up, but they have what they have to do. So everybody went through their final day. And because second level is a big deal to some classes and not so much to others, their experiences were a bit different. For example, Zarya got kicked out of the city guard and told never to come back, because in the end she ended up injuring 2 of the aspirant guards so badly they will not be fit to serve for months. She went a little on the berserk side. So that was a thing that happened. So
She was happy.
yeah, she seemed pretty happy about that, actually. She's deemed as being too dangerous for the guards. That looks good on the wall. On the other hand, Jazor went through his finale, and it was going through and making sure he had no flaws in his martial routine, which he's pretty solid at, no problem. He also worked with the young cleric, who was advancing along with him, and her name is Gaestra. And they ironed down his religious side of everything, and the final thing that he got to do before he graduated up to a properly trained second level paladin, the next one's the big one. The next one is where he takes the sacred oath and decides what his path is going to be from then on, his destiny. And all of the different orders within Selûne who have these oaths came to visit him, a representative from each one of the different paths. And if you know anything about D&D, you know that there are multiple paths they can take which radically shape the abilities that they will get as they go up in level. Also in my world, because things have consequences, what path you take may also matter to how you live from this point on. For instance, if you're a devotion paladin, people love you. You are the epitome of the protector. You throw yourself into danger for others. You work to heal what's been damaged before you rush to punish. Although there's plenty of punishment to go around, let's be honest. You know, that's seen as one of the most revered and respected paths a paladin can take. On the other hand, the Avengers are sometimes seen as crazed vigilantes, moving just ahead of the law, and it's a good thing they do so much damage to evil to justify the means they take sometimes. And Selûne does not have a very broad collection of Avengers. As a matter of fact, they didn't get an Avenger for them for poor Jazor to talk to. All the others were like, hey, these are the benefits that Selûne gives to us. In different aspects of the moon goddess, we all have these different abilities. So he was talking to everybody. And finally, the old paladin who first was there for his first day of training came to him and said, now, you know, there is an order that was not represented here. They're called the Eclipse Brotherhood, and they are the Avengers of Selûne. They're very seldom seen. They take pains to stay away from civilization because they are wholly committed to their crusade against all that is evil at all costs. And they realize that the closer they stay to civilization, the more widespread the collateral damage can get, so they purposefully try to stay away from civilization and do that. That's why nobody hears about them. And it doesn't seem like Jazor's interested in that, but he's getting to meet people. He's actually getting to interact through his training, and I think the player is enjoying this quite a bit. Now, of course, Luxor eventually wakes up and does a few things that he wants to do. They're keeping track on poor little Pip. Poor little Pip has been sleeping off a sugar binge from the platinum he spent to get sacks and sacks of pastries and sweets, because street kid who suddenly has money. But they're not sure where he goes sometimes. Sometimes he just vanishes while they are all preoccupied with their things. So he's not chained to the house, clearly. And he seems to be getting along okay, so I don't think the group is too terribly worried about him. But, yeah, he keeps his own hours. And then, of course, we had Aldrich. Aldrich's coming-of-age party, when he takes on the mantle of the Blade Singer, well, that was a party, because it's a big deal for Elven society when an Elven wizard becomes a Blade Singer. It is a big part of their culture. And when somebody actually accepts that mantle, the elves notice as a community. And there's a lot of respect that's accorded to somebody who does that. It's also a chance to size up the new wizard and see if they'll be able to handle the responsibilities, which Aldrich handled with aplomb. He was fine. But he got to have a nice party as a gift from his tutor. He got this beautiful scabbard for his rapier. And notice he didn't get a rapier, though. There's probably something to that. But he got a beautiful scabbard. And he got a new set of fine, noble clothes that looked great on him. So, you know, he had a great coming out party. With Felix got to go out hunting and shooting, and just shooting because he has to learn how to marry the act of using his bow with a lot of the ranger spells. And the rangers who are in the area know how important archery can be to rangers, quite honestly. And it doesn't look like Felix is going to be much different, not with that dexterity he's got. He's amazing with a bow. So, when he's rolling well. But, more on that later. So he got to shoot a ton. And all of them also kind of got, throughout this whole process, several of them got to, kind of show off their stuff, talk with their mentors, be around their people before they came back. And they got to all come back together and congregate and talk about what they'd been through and what they were doing.
Felix also got information for...
Ah, yes. One of the things, a little side thread that they grasped onto was when they were at the White Hart restaurant. They were talking to a barmaid, and she told them that they were worried because a hunting party had gone out and had not come back. And this was a veteran hunting party that had always managed to provide for fresh game for the restaurant. And they hadn't been back in about a month. So they were worried, and they had sent out requests for others. Felix talked to the rangers, and they're like, yeah, we have a suspicion what might have happened to this group. There's a hill giant that moved into the area, and unlike many of his kin, this one's pretty smart. It can attack from ambushes, and it sets up traps. And he set up right where that hunting party's preferred game area was. So I wouldn't put up a lot of hope that they're still alive. Hill giants are nasty. And we don't have the disposition to go out there and try to take him out ourselves yet. We just don't have... There's so many other things going on, we just can't take care of one threat that's already distance off 20 miles off in the woods. We have to worry about the things that are threats closer to Waterdeep in general, but we think that's what it is. So he brought that information back to the group. It's like, well, guys, you want to go hunting a hill giant? And they all said, heck no. Not now. Not right now, no. So he passed on that information, stopped at the White Hart, told them what happened, and they're sad, of course. But they understand there was always a dangerous job, so that sometimes happens. So they'll have to resort to other means of getting their game for their restaurant. By and large, that was the bulk of what happened as far as their leveling up and their experiences. So the final thing that happened was the group returned to Mert. Let's check off one of the boxes, okay? So they went to Mert's house, who is in the Castle Ward. He has a nice place. On the outside, it seems a little drab compared to the really nice estates around, but inside, mwah, magnifique. Obviously, Mert's a man with a lot of money on his hands. And he has a lot of things that adventurers would find to be pretty cool, used as decorations throughout his house. When he went there, they were introduced, and they were shown into Mert's study. Actually, Mert showed up and arrived. He's like, you guys could let me know before you come. Because he had been talking to a drow who he saw to the door and left. And then he took them into his study. And they told him what they had found out from Maxine. And everybody was in attendance here.
Luxor wasn't.
Yeah, that's right. Luxor wasn't. So Luxor was the only person who wasn't there. And they talked about what they'd found from Maxine, and he's like, okay, that's very interesting. They talked about, what role Yagra might have played. And again, he's about gathering the information, not necessarily about, because he himself does not act for the Harpers. He's just basically passes things through. If the most experienced people in the Harpers did all the work, the younger Harpers in the next generation won't have anything to do, and that's not going to prepare them. So they hand out, they parcel things, they delegate. And at this point, that was all that they really needed to do from Mert. So he did thank them for that, and he told them stories of his adventuring career. He gave them some very nice brandy. And they chatted. They also talked about the murders on the docks. And while the Harpers certainly sympathized for the people, they talked about who might have done all of this. While they were talking to Mert, Luxor was talking to the private eye that he'd hired. And Vince was at home, and they chatted. He'd gotten some information. Apparently he's pretty darn good at the private eye stuff. And he told him, okay, the people who were killed were shot first and then decapitated after they were dead. The shot came from a very small object, Gond weapon. It went through and out the other side in some, but some it didn't. And when he pressed for information, he's like, well, it's a pretty good bet that the person who did it was a drow elf. Because many of them have a lot of hatred yet for surface elves, and half-elves certainly fall under that category too. There are some who are known to use firearms, especially from a group. And at this point, the people who know about the world of the Forgotten Realms, especially Waterdeep, winced when I said the group that's known to use these things are a group of drow called the Dragon Duatha, who are, as it's spelled out, are a group of renegade drow who work under a fine gentleman named Tarlax. Most of this should probably stay player information, however. But there was no guarantee that the person who did this came from that group, because it is possible for anybody to get a Gond weapon. It's not cheap. Shooting them isn't cheap. And they don't just sell to just anybody, but if you have the money and the desire, you can get one of these weapons. They have them in a variety of flavors. You can get a pistol-sized, you can get a rifle-sized, and the MO of this person became clear when Vincent told Luxor, some of them were killed from a distance with a single shot. Others were killed at a closer, or took multiple shots to kill them before their heads were taken off. But I did get a print of the killer, and I had one of these boots reconstructed, and they could see that it was about a size 6 woman's boot. It's small foot, small, nimble feet. And he's like, this could definitely be a small, slight drow's foot. And he gave Luxor the boots for a little extra coin, so that they had something to go by, almost like the fingerprint, really. And he brought that information with him to the group, explaining all this. And the group had a lively discussion about these weapons, and then they realized, wait a minute, we know an artificer. He probably knows something about these weapons. And as it turns out, he does, a little bit. I mean, he doesn't use them because they're expensive and noisy, and, he doesn't have access to the secrets of the workers of Gond because his tinkering follows a different path. It incorporates magic into the machinery and mechanics, so it's different. In some cases, a lot more effective. But as he progresses in level, of course, his spells will outstrip the Gond weapons. But they had a nice long discussion at home in the tavern until a knock on the door. They're getting tired of me knocking, by the way. I think I got to change up my rep. But they got a visitor. And who might this visitor be? Well, if it isn't Laeral Silverhand, the Open Lord of Waterdeep. She paid them a visit, and they're like, oh my gosh, what are you doing here? And she's like, well, I sometimes roam the streets. I allow myself a little bit of time to get away from court. I can take care of myself. So I am free to walk around the streets as I need, and I've got numerous protections just in case. But a lot of people have been talking about you, and I wanted to see what everybody was talking about. I heard you're opening up this place. I've drank here before when this place was under different management, and this is a nice place. I hope you do well with it. They chatted a little bit. She seems personable enough. She's not distant and cool and haughty. She seems to genuinely appreciate the company of adventurers. It's pretty clear that she doesn't appreciate all of the adventurers, those who have a reputation for, let's just say not the best reputation of who they've associated with in the past. Got a bit cooler of a reception from her, but in general, she seems to like them well enough, and she made them an offer. She said, hey, I, of course, speak as the Open Lord of Waterdeep for a Waterdeep contingent called the Council of Lords. And if you are interested in working with us, we would definitely love to have you acting as agents of ours so that, you know, if something comes up that could endanger Waterdeep and the innocent people within, it's good to know that they're advocates for them. There are people who will put themselves at danger expecting compensation, and that's only fair, but with the backing of the rulers. And they're all like, yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. That'd be very cool. So it sounds like they're okay with the Lord's Alliance. Some more stuff that they get to do. Yay! But well, this was pretty much the end of their night. They got more information, and now they're at about the point where they can get ready to go and start tackling some of these missions they've got ahead of them. So they've tracked down information about the murder on the waterfront. They've got nothing stopping them from going to Mount Waterdeep now and talking to this hermit, and they've got a few other odds and ends to do.
We have to babysit the...
Oh, yes, and also babysit. The job that she gave them was to maintain the city. There's a very important guild, the Dung Sweepers Guild. There's a lot of horses and let's face it, people in Waterdeep. You need somebody to take care of that. There's a whole guild that has the copyright on that, so they do their job. But if they're endangered, they don't do their job, and then things get smelly fast, and disease starts to spread, and most people in Waterdeep understand the importance of the Dung Sweepers Guild, even if it's not the most glamorous of jobs. They, turns out that Lady Silverhair wants them to watch over a work crew working out in the dock section for a 10-day, just 2 hours a day. Nothing too painful, early in the morning, so that they can make a little money and help out the city. Great. They have no problem with that. So the next morning, they go to the Mule Skull Tavern out in Waterdeep, where they meet up with a work crew who seems so excited to have adventurers working with them. Guarding them is more the thing. And they treated this like a stakeout. Felix immediately goes up to a roof so he can watch everything going on. The rest of them kind of keep an eye out, being attentive. And they do see a group of people who look like they are walking back and forth, not doing any work, just keeping an eye on things, and they have a little bit more weaponry than your average person should have. They also look a bit more attentive than most of the drones and laborers in this street do. They don't look like they've just woke up from a hangover. They don't look like they're ready for another mindless day of earning their coppers so that they can keep a roof over their heads and food. No. These guys look like they could be something. There's 2 separate groups they've got their eyes on. One has a dwarf and a couple of half-orcs. That's something you don't see too often. The other are a couple of humans and another half-orc. So it looks like a bit of muscle going through around where these dung sweepers are working, but not necessarily after them. So that's life on the docks. You find weird groups that people rub shoulders with. And that's where we stopped. So, yeah, it was an exciting night. Lots of fun stuff. Not as much carnal combat, but all the pieces are now in place. The group is now 2nd level. They've got all their powers and abilities, and they're cool. They've got all these different jobs ahead of them. The tavern is getting better and better as they go along. They're going to probably find a couple more people to grab and adopt into the group. Who knows? But that's how things roll in Waterdeep, it seems. So until next time, I'm Rob. This has been my State of the Dungeon Address. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, farewell.